soon in early.
There will be a draft of the comp plan very soon. I think we're about a month away from the first drafts, maybe two, but we're close.
We did review drafts of chapters that related to parks a few months ago now, like over 2, I think. So we've seen a lot of comments on that. What's happening? Oh, okay. So we kind of have a preview, but just like not putting the cart before the horse kind of thing.
All right. Any other process questions before we jump into I know we're already getting a little ahead of ourselves, but before we jump into the substance of the proposal? Okay, cool. So there are 4 things on here, which are secretly really more like 6 things, but which is why I say we probably I know, really not that secretive. So I'm just gonna like walk through them just to like lay that out. And what I'm hoping is just, I would love to hear reactions on what should, like, do you think these are aligned with what you think our priorities should be? Do you think something's missing? Do you think there are too many? Like like that kind of stuff. And ultimately, I'm going to shift the conversation after a little bit of that to what would, if this is good, then let's vote on it. If it's not, what would be an alternate proposal, right? Because otherwise, if we could discuss this for hours on end. So just so you know, like at some point I'll shift the conversation to, if we don't want this exactly, what would be your alternate proposal? So the proposal for PROSAB's goals for the next 18 months would be number 1, volunteer program, building, and this is like a very short description of what's happening, building a list of volunteers and a ongoing volunteer program, which is what Casey and Lindsay are working on. And then this is the new part, utilizing said program for staff-directed projects such as weed pulls, trail building and maintenance, and fire mitigation. And that came from the last conversation where people brought up some of those different types of things. And we did sort of check with Nikki about that to see sort of what would be the most useful way to engage people in those. And it would generally be when staff has like, oh, this trail needs to be updated. Let's have a volunteer day to work on that type thing. Or like a fire mitigation day, like the one that CT is working on. So that's one.
And I think just to add on there, like we've talked a lot about trail connectivity and potentially building new trails, sprinkling, etc. And we were having a hard time figuring out what PROSAB, like we all can't single-handedly build trails, nor does Nikki want us to build trails. What we could do is facilitate community participation in that. So that's why we kind of slotted, we had a few like in the fire mitigation as well. Like, again, we all can't singly fire mitigate town land. So just thinking about like what role can PROSAB specifically play rather than like just like what would be nice things to have happen in general.
So that's one, volunteer stuff. And I want to be clear, I don't intend this to be that Casey and Lindsay are now responsible for all of these things. Weed pulls, trail building, fire, like that. I definitely don't want that to be the implication. It's more that they are building a program where we will have access to reach out to volunteers should an opportunity arise that like, oh, let's go do this thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? So just in case you're like, wait, what? 2 is support staff through fundraising for existing recreation facility priorities is what that should say right there. So 1 is rink, 2 is updating the playground at Chipeta. And both of those would essentially be the like, someone could write actual goals, but it would be looking for and helping write grants to do those 2 things that are, according to Nikki, large priorities for town. And I think we're fairly familiar with like what's going on with both of those, right? So I'm not gonna go like into.
I mean, just in terms, we talked about GoCo, and John, I want to talk to you more about this, but it sounds like you have ideas for other grants outside of GoCo, so we're not then bound to the GoCo kind of like timeline. So it would be looking, before we were talking about rink in terms of just GoCo, and this would be looking
totally. So that's number 2, which, let's just be transparent. It's really 2 things, but I couldn't help myself. And then 3 is totally new. So, and this is definitely up for discussion. I mean, totally new for like our goals, but it's in part something CT has raised a couple of times, in part something I've been thinking about, actually outside of my role in PROSAB, would be land acquisition / conservation. And this would need someone to think through what that actually looks like, but in part it would likely be working with Britt, possibly SAB.
Sorry, just to confirm, that's community planner, Britt.
Yes,
Demink.
Britt to make, yeah.
Okay.
It's like DEMINK.
E. Yep, MINKE.
E at the end. E at the end.
Okay. Sorry.
So, because I think,
Did you get a clarification?
because Nikki said she's like already looking into sort of figuring out the status of some of the lands. And I think just to big picture, like circle back, it's come to some of our attentions and has always been the case that a lot of the lands that we consider open space and parks don't actually have real protections on them. Some do, some have conservation easements, some don't, and some we don't know. And I believe that's what Britt is working on. And a member of the BOT has also been looking into some of those things and also related land acquisitions related to like private lands. I personally have just been thinking about that in terms of a couple of like really valuable wetland areas in town that one has recently gone up for sale. And anyway, so that's,
Amerigas.
yeah, and there's the AmeriGas property that I think everyone in town would love us to, but that's, I think, and I believe that's something the BOT has been looking at, so. That would be working very closely with other people and a super like, what's the word, like someone would need to really dive into some of the legalities and it'd be a very long-term project most likely, but it does sound like some of that's already started. So I did want to put that on there because I feel like I've heard that a few different times. And it would be an interesting thing to think about.
Do you want to elaborate on?
Yeah, so Britt actually has already pulled all the titles for all town lands to find out if they have conservation easements on them or not, because we're looking at housing. And so we would, you know, there's a great possibility that we'll lose a town park for housing, which is, it's necessary. I'm not saying no. I'd gladly give up a piece of a park and or, you know, whatever, a whole park, as long as we're not gonna lose all the parks in that particular neighborhood. So at one point in time, there was talk about taking Tilden and Angel Park, which are both down in Old Town, that would have, we would have lost both parks in Old Town. So there is a third park, but it doesn't have a name. Anyway, but it turned out that both Angel and Tilden had conservation easements. The most recent discussion, we've talked about taking a piece of Big Springs Park, which is at the end of Lakeview Drive. Taking the piece of that makes a lot of sense because Rodeo Court's right there. That's Boulder County Housing Authority. It makes a lot of sense, and we wouldn't lose the whole park. So, but anyway, so Britt's already pulled all of those titles. It's a matter of getting with Britt, talking with her about which pieces, like for instance, Moose Meadows. I have no idea
Right.
if that has a conservation easement on it or not.
It does, yeah, from the Mud Lake open space acquisition.
Oh, good.
Are you sure it's on that side though and not
No.
just on the side? It is?
Everything that came in that acquisition,
That's such good news.
yeah, is all in that space, open space, conservation easement.
Did you hear that, CT?
So have you looked at the rest of the other parks, Luke?
No, I was just looking at that one because of the wrinkling trail stuff.
Mhm.
Very good. Curious. So there's a couple more parks in that same Sunnyside. There's Joe Smith Park and Tom Riley Park. Both in that Sunnyside area. And town owns a lot of land where our trails and things are too. So,
Mhm.
anyway, it could be a really fun, very interesting project. And then
Yeah.
try and find, you know, other land that's not earmarked for housing or earmarked for industrial or whatever it is, to try and find those pieces of land where can we, you know, acquire more open space.
Right.
For town of Nederland. Be
And like-
tricky, but we're.
What are the mechanisms to do that? Where does the money come from?
Where's the
What
money?
is, how do we do that? If this land, if land comes up for sale, what's the process for actually deciding if it's something town wants to acquire? And again, that is definitely not just a PROSAB thing, but it does seem like it would be a very smart area for PROSAB to have a hand in
Okay.
conjunction with
Yeah.
Brit and,
What about like the Wingate property?
Wingate's conservation easement.
yeah, that's
Right.
definitely.
Oh,
Or, but I mean, right, but wouldn't that, I mean, that becomes town open space then, right?
it is town open space, current.
I would,
Is that
it's already been
completed?
transferred?
Mhm.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
I didn't know that.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's a good point, because like that was a donation, not a purchase. So
Right.
like also how can we,
Yeah.
if we need to, I don't really know how that works, but like how to be
And then
communicative with
there
people
are-
about that.
You know, other parcels like that around, in and around town that
Yeah.
are on the radar for acquisition by some means, so.
Right. Yeah, like the one by the post office, right? Or no?
No,
Is that right?
private.
Yeah, I don't think that one.
Yeah,
So
no, I
it's
know it's private,
Earl's-
but,
it's sold.
oh, it did.
The
Okay.
the Earl's lot?
Hmm?
No,
The Hoyles,
Hoyle's lot.
yes, it was Glenna Carline's and it sold to the Hoyle family.
Right, but the Hoyles, I think, are not planning to, I think they're gonna conservation it.
Are they?
I think so.
Conservation it. I love it.
This is like Siobhan Hoyle, like Gold Hill in Hoyle.
Yeah, and well, and Hoyle's like all done over there.
Emmett Hoyle.
Yeah,
Yeah, steam shovel.
Siobhan is, it's,
What, it's his brother-in-law.
okay.
Can't remember his name. Terrible.
But even like creating like a one pager or something on like, hey, like if you have and like town has this program where.
On a tax write-off?
Yeah.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Oh, that's like,
Here's
that's
how it
that's
works.
what someone might want to do, you know,
Right,
like. I
like
mean,
rather
It's like a very Wingate.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's not.
And they're-
Within the realm of normal.
And the
Oh, totally.
Wingate one, isn't it, doesn't have like a recreation, like, she didn't
The
specify.
only thing that can go on the Wingate property is a trail.
Right,
That is it.
but I mean, was she specific?
She was quite specific.
But that she wanted there to be trails.
No,
Oh, okay.
no, not that you wanted trails, but that's quite specific. The land shouldn't have any amenity to it.
Right, yeah, just trails, right.
Maybe a trail.
A trail.
Same.
I would love to see that area. I've never been over there.
We did talk about at one point in time, Sam and when Jesse Severs was on the board, we did talk about trying to get a little bit of connectivity up into the West Mag area.
Yeah,
for
because that would
Forest
be,
Service.
that would be an avenue, because there's
Yeah.
Forest Service right on the other side of the road there, so that if you could get from town. to
Provide like a
Swift-
pathway to get out.
Wait, would that
Without
not be-
Being on the road and stuff like that.
That would be allowable with the easement, right? Because it'd just be a trail.
We talked about a downhill like a downhill
Yeah.
mountain bike
What's
thing
the
with an
directional-
uphill
Yeah, a directional
that
trail.
could be used for walking as well as
Yeah,
the slow.
I think it would need to be used for walking.
Yeah.
You know, in addition to the bike.
Yeah.
But that has
But the-
totally transferred. Like it, town, the
Yeah.
town owns it outright now. Easement.
If we had the
And at that
service,
point in time, we just stopped talking about it because it was like
Yeah.
nothing.
yeah, we
wasn't-
were waiting on,
wasn't done.
we were waiting on the
Yeah.
surveys and everything.
So there's no- no
Surveys
use
are
in it.
done.
Because it still shows up as Mary Wingate on the assessor, building county assessors.
Does it?
Maybe someone should go record that deed or something.
Is that
Sorry.
something that we can talk, like, continue, it's, we're talking about goals and stuff, like that property, or I don't know where the town is at, where it's at, in your, it's at with like, you know, what we want, what the next steps are for that property. I don't know if that ties into anything we're talking about now.
Because the only thing that would be permissible on that would be a trail.
And I think that could be like volunteer program, like, hey, we are having a volunteer weekend or whatever.
I think that just would be a discussion where it's gonna end up being a PROSAB.
Go ahead, Bob.
Exactly.
BOT, can we have your permission?
Yeah.
Right.
And us,
there's
really,
the-
like,
there's some
representing
fussy
the
neighbors
town's
in that.
desire, whatever.
Yeah, because I
Like
think,
to see.
oh, sorry,
So,
I
yeah.
keep interrupting you.
That's all right.
Yeah, because I think like, yeah, it's a good question, because how does stuff like that fit in? Like if we have these ongoing goals,
Yeah.
like, because I think the goals are sorry, priorities are super helpful to help guide us like in like ongoing week to week stuff, but that doesn't mean that there's not gonna be like, you know what I mean? Like, but like you could totally argue that like figuring out what to do with like X, Y, and Z places should instead be a priority. Like that's completely open, like we're on, like things like that are on the table here. And I also think that, just this is my personal opinion, so not like, if we want to have that be a priority, it would need to be in conjunction with the town staff priorities, like to work on that, you know what I mean? So it'd be like when like Nikki and John and town update town goals, like we could be like, actually, we really strongly think this should be in there and we want to provide support for that, or like we want to advise on that type of thing.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or if like a group of people from town were to come to us and be like, hey, whatever this issue is, then we're at a point where it becomes a discussion item and maybe something we want to advise on.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's ever gonna be like nothing else to sort of, yeah, like offer thoughts on or learn about or what have you, for sure, so. But again, totally open to, these are not at all like set in stone unless you guys just think they're perfect and amazing, like we could definitely be open for different ideas.
I will say, just like commenting on the land acquisition and conservation piece, that I like it. And I think that it gives like a bigger vision for, and quite an advisory role on that,
Right.
which is, we're an advisory board.
Yeah.
And so I think it's like feels like a functional use of the board.
Mhm.
Because it also, in this scenario, furthers the actual open space that we have to work with. And that's like one of the challenges we all know is in a town where, I mean, of course, every town has its limits of resources that are available, but that is one of the unique challenges with anything we do, is that there's only so much. So if we can, to a degree, like make the pie bigger that we can work with, then we might be able to do things in a way that are, more agreeable to the majority of the town, and reduce some of the conflict that occurs with things. So I think, and it feels like just a long range, long-term vision thinking,
Mhm.
and it's also kind of in line with, not that it has to be, but it's in line sort of with the history of the Boulder County area, like doing that,
Mhm.
finding ways to protect space, finding ways to create recreation opportunities. Which is also kind of a cool to bring in that aspect of the legacy forward of what we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
So that's just a fun.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's a really, thank you.
Well said.
And then, not to stop conversation, because we'll go back and ask for like thoughts, but just to clarify, Prost is definitely on here. But since it's on hold until 2025, it's sort of like on there as we'll revisit that when we come back to this in January to figure out like who's gonna be point on that, like if we want to keep it the same or change it or whatever. But since nothing's gonna happen on that until January, then it's just kind of on there as on hold, so. But yeah, so I think we're already kind of digging into the meat of this, but let me just ask, let's take like, I don't know, I have no idea how long this will take, but like 10 or 15 minutes, like, are there any things, so first, anything people would suggest changing or removing or adding to this list? And I do only want to keep 3 to 5, so if we add things, we have to.
I'll jump in and be pretty brief, but I really like the list as it is. I think it's great. I think it, like looking at everybody's survey results, it feels like you did a good job of even nesting things in to like make it work. And then I wonder if you feel like it's highlighted enough. I mean, I think it is, just that like trail, we have building maintenance on there, but more like the connectivity / building maintenance is this feels like this important idea that we've seen in different documents again and again and feels really valuable. So I don't know if we feel like that should be pulled out on its own, or because that's staff directed, that we're just supporting that and doing whatever we can to advise and or organize around that. So that's my only piece of feedback, because it just feels like the one consistent thing that I've seen.
No, it's,
The connectivity piece is important, always. So I would not necessarily need PROSAB to tell me,
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily need you to tell me, oh, yeah, I don't think that's necessarily needs to be a goal.
Got it.
Because that could just be something that you could come to me and say, hey, Nikki, we're missing this piece right here.
Okay.
You know, or Luke
Is it
could say
that simple?
or
Like, is it
Ken, or
that
anybody.
easy?
It's that simple and that
Well,
easy
then
to
let's
say,
not make
hey,
it more
let's
complicated, I
just
guess.
put it up, let's put it on our radar
Yeah,
to have a trail building day, you know, at X, Y,
Yeah.
or Z.
It might be useful for you guys to think about when you're setting these goals.
yeah,
The two things. Number one, BOT is going to go through strategic goal setting exercise here as we kind of go through the budget because their goals are all kind of expired at the end of 2024. And it would be really great to have it for Nikki to be able to have a draft of these things that could come to influence that project. The other thing is I might mention is
Sure.
that I think that when you set goals like this, especially when there's a longer time frame to a plan, that we think are achievable, and that's something really Nikki would have the say on. But like if it's if you can have some specific things that you can say, like, we would like to see more connectivity and we would like to see if maybe we can have a trail master plan that kind of shows us our, whatever it is, like a SWOT analysis of how trails are connecting so that there's like a basis for that, a foundation. Those are things that we can get grants for pretty easily. And you guys know that work more than me, like what needs to happen in those spaces. But even on like things like a pool or ice rink, like a lot of the pieces that go into that might be things that you could kind of timeline and map out. Or if this is going to be a 10-year plan, so you can say, by year 3, we think we should be in a place where we can apply for funding because we're at a sufficient level of engineering. And I know that these might be a little more fast than that, but those kinds of things might help your process just to make sure that there's a roadmap when you get to the part where you have to execute.
Yeah,
I think that's great. I think that's kind of why you were saying priorities and then bring goals into the priorities.
yeah.
Uh,
And yeah, we were struggling to think of like, what is a tangible outcome that PROSAB has
And do.
control of? Yeah,
Yeah.
but now that this discussion spurred me to think like the PROST, we could say PROST with an emphasis on identifying
Exactly.
trail connectivity opportunities.
And we have like the Trails Master Plan actually already, so we have like pretty much the blueprint for that thing, and it's like just getting to the point of.
Right, I mean, we could literally have a section in it that's like opportunities to expand trail
Yeah,
connectivity.
and maybe our goal is to advise that it gets done and then.
And and I think because part of it, like I was telling Luke this a while back, like there are just there's so much in there, like,
Yeah.
and so much, so maybe even just here's the top 3, right? Like based on top, like, cause we did all of those charrettes in 21, 22, and
Exactly.
23. Like we have a whole bunch of information
Yeah.
about what people in town say are the biggest connectivity things. We have our own experience, like,
Right.
so literally like something like that could just be like, and you have done another place where like, yes, we could do like a work day or something like
Yes.
that. Or,
There is,
yeah,
and I've been begging for it.
yeah.
And there's, in that trail master plan, there's already a whole bunch of those places. that
Yeah, it's
are
kind of like laid out
Identified
already.
as like, these are the segments that,
Exactly.
connections.
I need PROSAP to do a volunteer day to help me rebuild
Okay,
the
so that's
section of
like the
trail
thing.
that's from Old Town to County Road 130.
Oh, wait, sorry, I hadn't heard that, so
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to Jesse about it.
Yeah, Jesse was like, he was offering to, volunteer time and machinery for both Wrinkling
Yeah.
and that.
That's not so much machinery, that's hands.
have you talked to Lindsay and Casey
Nope.
about, yeah, I
mean-
think that seems like maybe and I know
Yeah, he's saying
Casey.
it's just our board doing.
No, it's a board.
No, organized.
But
Oh,
organizing.
organizing a volunteer day.
yeah, we need to rebuild that trail, preferably before school starts again, but
The one that goes out of.
Fine with-
Towards high school.
be friendly to us. on that. Yeah. And starts in Old Town and Pine.
Actually, I feel like with,
By Jill's house.
Yes.
Sorry.
it just like pops up the road up there,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's a mess. Yeah, we could totally do that.
I mean,
Okay.
honestly, we could probably get that one done in 2 days.
Not even.
Like a
In
day,
a
with a
day.
group of people. It's not that hard.
Nope. We need to divert the water though.
Yeah.
That's gonna be the tricky part, but
But yeah, it seems like maybe
It's
like
that.
if you guys and Lindsay
Lindsay, I
and
can work
like,
with you on that one. So like, cause I know the people who, I'm sorry, I just like.
Yeah.
Just said that. Just ignore me.
I'm
But
gonna,
I can work with you on that, cause I know that there are people who would be like, yep, we can come and just tell us the day, show up.
okay, I'm gonna CC you on this email to Nikki that I.
Great.
So we have it.
yeah, that
I'll
looks
weed
like.
no,
through
I know
those.
not-
I'll
I'm
weed
on
through those in a week and a half.
Yeah,
It's
when
bad.
are you back? July 28th?
Just schedule it.
Yeah.
If we did it in August. is that-
27th, no, 20th, oh, yeah. If you did what?
If we did it in August, is that like, do we? is
I
that-
just don't know. I just don't know if I can get materials. and
That's
get
what I'm
that
asking you. Like, I think you need to tell us.
Because we're gonna be, because the parks team is gonna be completely tied up on the Riverwalk project.
What materials do you need for that, do you think?
Couple scoops of crusher fines, probably some drainage tubes. You know, I really need to go look at it. It's right now that the sand from the highway has been piling up on that trail for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So I think that we're gonna end up having to remove.
I think so
material.
too, because that's kind of what I've ride it a fair bit.
Mhm. I think we're gonna have to remove and then rebuild. So I'll need several, probably a dump truck of road.
It's supposed to just super sand in there.
Yeah, yeah, it kind of freaks me out, actually. I feel like I always get stuck in there.
It's like easy to sort of skid out a bike. and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Harder to pedal because of that, it's not hard packed.
Yeah, I
that's-
wonder, actually, I don't know, Casey, I know Lindsay's not here, but like, what would you think about if, I know we get updates on like the creation of the volunteer program. It's interesting and helpful for sure, but what if like, would it be helpful if we also just did like a check-in? Need PROSAB to mobilize volunteers for, just because like, you know, you have like so much on your plate, like it can sometimes.
There's things that that the volunteer, program can just do. Weed pulls, you don't need me
That's cool. Like,
to lead a weed
Yeah,
pull. I just need to know when you're gonna have it so I can drop you off some bags and then we'll come and pick up the bags
Yeah.
when you guys are done.
Have
Um,
you told Lindsay that? Because I know she's been waiting to hear back. Okay,
Is she waiting for,
yeah, to schedule the weed pulls for the summer.
oh, so I thought she was just doing it already.
No, she was waiting because, yeah.
Yeah,
so.
that can be done anytime. You don't need me to tell you when to do a weed pull.
What if there was just 1 or 2 days a month that are just volunteer
Yeah,
days, period, and
kind of good projects on it.
whatever needs to get done on those days, you're like,
It's a
okay,
great
you're
idea.
gonna have
It'd be
25
fun,
people.
but if there's a huge difference between who's gonna show up for a weed pull.
Yeah.
Who's gonna fire,
You're right.
Yeah,
so.
and like different levels of
Yeah.
liability and safety and like, you
Good.
can't just like, not just anyone can build a trail, like it has to be done properly, like.
Yeah.
But anyone can pull soundless chamomile.
That's true.
But if you, well, but circling back to like how that could be functional is, if that's on the radar for an upcoming one, then it just gets, oh, these are the ones, like, let's make sure something's getting picked. And maybe there's kind of ongoing stuff that's necessary at different seasons. And then there's the stuff like, oh, this is a specific project, it's gonna get done once until it needs to be redone. So it's just scheduled that, of course, someone's gonna commit that makes sense to be there, to be there.
I think ultimately it'd be really cool once we have the volunteer program
Because then it creates a culture of.
where we create a calendar and at the beginning in January, I just pencil in on the calendar, all right, so the month of June is gonna be a trail day, volunteer day.
Totally.
And then the month of July will
Yeah.
be Sentinel's Chamomile Day.
And on top of that, some people just need volunteer hours for like just their jobs and like random things.
And I do get,
And then if it's on the schedule, they can just plan on it.
Yeah, that's a great
in
idea.
addition.
we have
People-
volunteer days at the skate park as well, or people come in and
Yeah.
help me patch and fill and do all that wonderful things that need to happen over there. There's always the rink.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's put a pin in this
Yeah.
Yep.
wonderful brainstorm about how to run the volunteer program and think maybe, Casey, since you're like sorry, I keep pointing out because like you're the one here that's point on the volunteer program. Would you be into maybe bringing back like a bigger conversation about like how to the meeting like next month about like some of these great ideas about.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm like having trouble connecting like with Lindsay on it with like our schedule, so it's just, I feel like it's kind of just been like. Run the town for like a month through the summer, like it's just been like tough, I don't
Yeah,
know, so it's
exactly.
it's been a little. And I just feel like it's still kind of like we have all these like great ideas, but it's still just like very like amorphous, and like I don't, like I like the weed pools like totally make sense, but I just. I don't know, and like, it was awesome that like Boulder Watershed Collective, like, wanted to meet about stuff and like Floss and Slots, but I still just like, I just feel like we don't really, like, we're kind of all over the place with this priority, and it's kind of hard for us to like, I think we need to be a little bit more specific about like what we need done, because like, right now, like, we're just talking about so much stuff, I'm just like,
Yeah.
like, that can just go in so many different directions, it's kind of overwhelming.
What would be helpful from this crew? In order to like.
Well, I think maybe in this priority, we should also mention SLAWs and SAWs. Like,
That's just the fire mitigation.
yeah, and like, that's like CT's, like, like he's working on that, so it's like, he's kind of in like in this priority as well, so it's, so like, that's kind of its own thing, like, he's gonna be like doing like. I'm just very confused about like, I feel like we're just all over the place on this.
The
I don't know
Fast and
what
Slots
this means.
program in the past had a community champion. And it was just one person. Once the program started running, it ran itself. It wasn't like it was gonna be part of the volunteer program necessarily. Maybe it would be, I don't know. Anyway, but in the past, it was a community champion who basically said, all right, and that person got together the address where everybody was going to meet that day. They did a lot of private. So this will be the first one that we've used a group of people on town land. Very different.
But I think your point is a really good one, right? Like, I think there are a ton of ideas about ways in which volunteers could be mobilized. And like, I think it's important that I think if you and Lindsay are still going to be the 2-point people, which that doesn't have to be the case, we'll get to that in a second, but whoever's point on the volunteer program, in my opinion, should say, yes, we can do these 3 things, and we're gonna like set up this system, and then anything else like needs to be deprioritized essentially, right? Like, I don't think we can't do everything. And so I think
Yeah.
whoever's point on any of these projects should be the person who gets to say, yes, we can do this, or no, we can't do that, right? And then if someone still wants to do a thing, they could do it outside of PROSAB, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think we can all be like, we have these 1,000 things, go produce us volunteers and like
Yeah.
make it all happen.
Yeah, and so I guess,
Well, I think too, like, because what you're saying is like, yes, we have a volunteer army, but what do they do? Right, and that's, so like, that's kind of the trick of like nesting those priorities underneath volunteer program.
Right.
Like, you almost need to just kind of say, okay, these are the priorities for our volunteer program, fire mitigation.
Oh, yeah, smart.
And so that we can, and then you might even make them very specific of like, okay, we're gonna do this trail, this trail, and this trail.
Yes.
Clear these 3 areas of public of town property for fire. We're gonna pull weeds from these 3 things, and like, that's
I love that.
like,
Yeah, just weed pull could just be a weed pull.
yeah,
Well,
I mean, you might just say like, okay, it's gonna be, we're gonna do town property on this
Yep.
spot, you know, and there are definitely certain places around town that are worse than others. You can just
We could actually have, so it could be like, to, I think maybe a little bit to your point, it could be a sort of a dual. Because we can, it's tricky because we can only have 2 people talk to each other outside of meetings, but because of that.
You can always notice it if need.
That's true. We could totally do that. We could, and you could, yeah. So we could have, say, 1 or even 2 people sort of thinking through the volunteer opportunities, and 1 or 2 people thinking through the how to recruit and manage and organize volunteers. Because those are actually 2 very different things, right? Like, one is essentially an event coordinator, right? And then 1 is like a volunteer coordinator.
program planner, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really, yeah.
Smart.
I think having a framework that identifies the various pools of volunteers, like these students or the people who need it for various work things or whatever, and like identifies those and kind of like their timing, and just, I'm viewing it as creating a framework, like the volunteer piece, not the
Yeah.
what will the volunteers do piece, but like how can the town leverage volunteers piece.
Yeah, so there's like essentially, I just wrote down in the doc, like there's the volunteer coordinator and there's the event coordinator, maybe 2 of them, right? And like those people, if they need to meet outside of here, they can notice that, but like would really be sort of like coordinating 2 very different types of things. Does that make sense?
What Alex just touched on about, how would be, is just you and Lindsay in this situation, coming up with a group of people that I can pull from. If I was gonna plan a mitigation day, it would be so much better and more helpful now that I've learned how to delegate things. If PROSAB was saying, hey, like Casey, or like CT is doing on the Moose Meadows project. Great, plan it, do it. Tell me, what supports do you need from me and my staff, and we'll be there. Where I would want a more heavy hand in,
Yeah.
like, the trails piece, it's that are more sensitive for certain.
Yeah, okay, so it sounds like it'd be more the volunteer program planner piece that we're just coming up with a way to have a pool and like, I don't know, because I just feel like some of the other discussion we have is like talking more about these like concrete events and.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not doing all of that.
I think those are two different things.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the event, I'm just gonna call them an event coordinator, but we can totally change that. Coordinating with the event coordinator to be like, here's all of the volunteer opportunities coming up, but it wouldn't be like on you to make, like, to plan those events or like.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm getting my Mars crystal.
Yeah. No, it is confusing.
Yeah,
So I think that, so I used the Google Gemini, AI tool to analyze our survey sheet and, so it came up with like our top priorities are PROST, supporting town staff, trail connectivity, volunteer program, fire mitigation. But 3 of those are kind of like, we're lumping under the volunteer program, which I think is great. That lets us, optimize things that we're gonna do. But because those are, collectively out of all of our answers, those are 3 of our top 5 priorities, we should probably call them.
So
You can always amend the plan.
volunteer network and program. And 2 is planning and managing volunteer events on top priorities, weed pulls, trail building, maintenance, and fire mitigation, which is not like a perfect summary of what you were suggesting, Luke, but I think does pull it out as both more important, or not, it emphasizes the importance and also can pull it out as being 2 different groups of people working on it. So it's not all falling to Casey and Lindsay or whoever takes point on this, because I don't read the untold. But
I
think
like
that's
this.
Smart.
I like this way that it is broken out. No,
Yeah.
even better.
Thank you. I think in writing. So yeah, so it is 7:08, so I don't want to go on with this too much longer. It is a lot still. Is there anything anyone thinks should be taken off? And then if not, let's move on to talking about like who might want to do what.
I mean, because the pros is just kind of hanging out.
The post is hanging out, it's true.
And I mean, the volunteer program, like sort of building that program is sort of a one and done kind of thing. Once it's built, I mean, somebody has to manage it, but like, that's not the same thing as trying to, get things together.
Yeah, I think, B would be ongoing, like
Theoretically,
planning the
we could
evidence.
deprioritize that by the time January comes around and we need to focus on PROSAB.
I mean, having run a lot of volunteer networks, I would say it would definitely need to be on the list for,
Yeah,
like,
it's-
as a priority.
Bump down the list as, as PROSAB bumps up. So even though we have 4 things, we're maybe not trying to do all 4 at the same time.
I think we can do all these.
So it's like, then you can, you don't
Yeah.
have to spend.
For parks in the wintertime is,
Yeah.
there's the, community center has opportunities for the holiday mountain market and the community Thanksgiving dinner.
But that wouldn't be helping your,
No,
like, we
not at
wanna
all.
help yourself.
But if we were building a volunteer program, the Parks Department could utilize, it'd be cool to have the thing that Peter, planning all the events and things like that, he could pull from that, Dawn Community Center, that kind of stuff.
Nikki, you're missing it. We're planning to build a whole Nordic Trail network in the wintertime.
Excellent.
And like, my
There we
idea
go.
for the like rails and like this winter snow park, like hike.
I had somebody ask if I could, build, if I
Like
could turn
jumps
one
and
of the
ramps and stuff.
trails into an ice skating thing so that they could like skate the trails in the wintertime. And I said, I can't even keep ice on the rink. Expect me to keep it in the trails.
Excuse me.
That's where we say outdoor, you need the, I mean.
Yeah, exactly. That's a
Yeah,
great use of
like,
like
people
outdoor
are
investing
always
in the
there.
original thing in the community.
Yeah.
For sure.
All
I
right,
agree.
so that's cool. I love talking about fun things in the winter. So I don't know that we need to I guess we should formally vote on it, but first let's make sure we have people who are willing to take point on each of these things before we vote into these. So I actually don't know the best way to do this, but I think maybe if, I don't know, people speak up and say which 1 or 2 things you'd like to put your name next to, maybe?
So I'll put my name next to essentially like the trail building maintenance approach on the volunteer program and coordinating the needs that are around that for sure.
So 1B?
1B, yeah, essentially,
Yeah, because we kind of got to do the whole thing.
right.
So it's got to be the weed pulls, trail building, fire mitigation.
And also CT.
Yeah, I'd like to be part of that too.
Okay. All right. Who else? And we're not doing anything on Prost right now. We're just putting it on hold until 25. So just ignore that for now.
I think the land acquisition and conservation is just like this very interesting thing, and so I'd like to at least have a hand in the initial formation.
It also feels like it makes sense to me. Sorry to told you.
I was gonna volunteer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have that already kind of insider.
I just don't know how to manage the executive information. Because I know there's a bunch of stuff you can't talk about because of executive session, so.
I talked to Nicole about it and she's the person. So. And I know you expressed interest there too. I just want to ask, is
Yeah.
anyone else interested in that?
Well, Kat, I know you were in, like, I think we can put more than 2 names right now. And then
Yeah.
we could
Yeah.
sort
Yeah,
through it.
everyone who's,
I
I,
think like anyone who's interested.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, but I,
It's a pretty big like project. I
But I'm
think.
not telling you to put your name down either. I just.
I am not going to put my name down, so.
Right.
I will be a bystander until a while later. But does anyone else want to? So I'm going to put my name down next to the playground grant at Chipeta because even
I'm like currently playing at it.
though I don't want to do that, I know how to do it and I know of a bunch of playground grants. So yeah, well, I used to be a grant writer.
Yeah.
so.
I feel like
I
put me
mean,
down as a secondary, just kind of like if you're gonna be the primary in that, like literally I'm playing at the playground right now. And I'm like, oh, that feels important.
You're invested, yeah.
Yeah.
But does anyone else, like, people speak up for the things you're interested in putting your name down for? So I'll put them all. I've already got you for 2, so let's
know.
actually hold off on that for any more.
But I'm interested in still doing the volunteer network with Lindsay.
Okay.
Now we kind of have a better idea of what it is that we need to be doing.
And can you
And I'm
follow up
happy
with?
to meet to brainstorm with you guys, so
Okay,
we
cool.
can notice it, like,
Okay.
it's really.
I am
not
too.
big
I run a lot of volunteer programs.
deal.
So.
Just need 24 hours, I think. No,
Yep.
sorry.
Yep.
Can you follow up with Lindsay and let her know that she, oh,
Wait 1 second.
hang on, CT, 1 second. Can you
Sorry.
follow up and communicate what Nikki told us, which is you guys should just go crazy and do the weed pull thing?
Yes.
And just let Nikki know, I guess, when it's happening?
Mhm.
Is that sufficient?
Yep. Something to do.
And then do you also want me to kind of on the trail building maintenance? Or do you want something about the trail building day that you're talking about for the,
County Road 130. Yeah, it would be, we could start planning, putting together something for that.
Well, that would be Sam and CT though, to actually plan the event, right?
And like,
Well, I think she
more,
was just talking about it.
if CT wants to, great, but I'm less interested in the fire mitigations.
So then, I think it's.
I know.
Then.
Yeah, it's like if Nikki says she wants something done and if we're like, well, we're not personally interested.
Right, it's
Yeah.
like,
And that-
like I understand.
hate fire mitigation.
Right, like I understand personal interests are like
Yeah.
one thing, but also like if we're gonna do
Yeah,
a
yeah.
thing, we gotta do a thing.
Totally, and I'm for that, I'm just saying, if
I
we
hear
can
what you're
leverage the personal interest, then it's just gonna get done better
Yes,
as
yeah.
well.
And like,
because we're all volunteers.
pilot, like, we
Yeah,
don't need to like,
Which is why I was like thinking ahead on that, because I'm like, oh, you talked to me about trails, like I'm really.
Does that
and
make
coordinate.
sense?
Yeah, totally. So let's roll with this and try it and just be open-minded to adjust it. If
Totally.
I feel like we need to.
yeah.
But like, yeah, and then like Nikki knows who to go to say, I
Yeah.
want to plan
I
this
didn't do it
day.
before.
Yeah, so let's get that done. And like, if you guys for some reason don't
Totally.
have the capacity to make it happen, then you just know that you need to find someone who
Delegate.
can do
some-
it.
Cool.
Just like, when Casey can't take notes, so like she finds someone else to do it or what have you.
Yeah, let's go for it. And too, like, the things I'm passionate about. And
Because we had told you to wait. You were very patient.
No, thank you.
Okay, cool, thanks.
CT, just since we don't want to miss you, is there anything else besides 1B that you want to put your name next to for working on? And it's okay if not.
I apologize as I'm 2-year-old here, so kind of in and out with the audio. In doing what I can to help move legal protections for
Yep.
Yeah,
land available
seems
to
like
town.
it'd be an asset there.
I'm no legal mind, but I intend to do the parks department a good long time, so.
Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, that was my guess, so that's what partly. So I put your name down next to that. I think like there's 3 people there, so we can figure out how that works, but I think it's not a bad thing to have extra people on a
Yeah.
big ass long project like that. I'm sorry.
You could subdivide it so 3 people are.
Somebody's working on certain aspects. of certain
Yeah.
things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Someone's looking at one document and someone's meeting with other people or whatever.
I'm happy to put myself still on rank.
Thank you.
Also interested in doing that as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Anyone want to look for playground grants with me? Oh, wait, you said that, but you already have 2 things, so
I
let's
know.
hold on that.
Put him.
Alternate.
Probably like, you know.
Yeah,
and
it's true. We'll have a new person. next
I am
month, right?
passionate about it, you know, like
Yeah, no,
I've got the energy for it.
Like, I
I didn't
know
care about
the best.
team.
Yeah.
The
I
best
didn't either.
sides and
Yeah,
the best
you know.
swings.
When you go to a good playground, you know, when you hit
It's epic.
kids enough, like,
No, it's
Yeah.
quite true. We're not missing anyone besides.
Like I didn't
Lindsay,
care
right?
about it the same way as I do now, you know.
Yeah. Been to one in Lafayette.
Oh, that's
It's-
it. We've got
I
everyone.
used to live there.
Huh?
We've got everyone.
Except
Except
for-
the intern is a new
Okay,
alternate.
let's go take.
So maybe I'll take point on tech, like
Okay.
communicating with
Okay.
Lindsay just to see if she wants to
we
change
should
her.
have talked about the playground before as well.
I know, that's like,
Okay.
I think Lindsay might be also interested in the playground. So let me,
Yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, like, by all means, take me off if Lindsay's interested.
well, also, again, we don't need to take necessarily anyone off. Like we could like loop together when it's like, when it makes sense, you know, too. So here, let me put Lindsay with a question mark on that. And
So you'll take,
But once I learned like the playground stuff was like out of date, right? Or, you know, I'm like, okay,
are you anxious when she's
well,
like
I
leading
get
off?
it's pretty fine, but I'm like,
Oh, it's fine. It's fine. It's not,
yeah.
playground equipment is really only meant to last about 15 years.
Yeah.
And we're-
So I'm like, give me, you know, make a pitch deck, I'll go talk to a playground manufacturer.
That's
Get a new
I
playground.
was gonna say, you can tell me what kind of wings you
Yeah.
like best.
Okay, so I think we have one person on, at least one person on everything and the opposite, whatever I was trying to say. So, and then when we do get our new person, we can ask what they're interested in. But yeah, so I think like if there's only 2 people, it makes life easier, but I think let's not actually curb the number of people. If people are interested in something, let's like roll with it, right? And we'll just figure it out. If we need to notice something, we can. If we need to figure out how to communicate, we totally can. So, all right, should we like, I feel like we should like actually vote on it just to make
Yeah.
it like
Let's do it.
formal.
Yeah, works for me, even though it's not in. Actually. Does someone want to
Are we
move?
not allowed to?
You can nod.
We're not, I don't, nobody knows what that means. It's not, I Googled it. It does not exist on the internet.
It exists in
Doing it again.
Netherlands.
They not up for.
It also doesn't mean, it's like, it's not binding. So it's like,
My very first meeting, they said that, and I thought they were saying something in a different language, because it was like kind of short, like fast, and I was like very confused about it.
not a
too.
four.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was nod, AFORE.
Yeah,
But that, neither that nor the other one exists on the internet. I Googled it
Interesting.
and it's not, and it's also, yeah, I would prefer just a straight up yes or no. If that's
Are we
okay.
allowed to,
It's not in, you have to move it.
like, can I do it right now?
Mhm.
Oh, okay, cool. Moving it.
No, I mean,
Like
like you
make a
just
motion.
said, I'm making a
Oh,
motion to.
oh, I thought you meant physically move the text.
But any of us can
Yeah.
make a motion.
Any one of you can make a motion to make this an action item
Oh,
instead of
So-
just a discussion.
I'll make a motion to make the PROSAB 2025 priorities, an action item to vote on. And that we're voting to agree that these are our action items,
Yes, cool.
Our priorities.
our priorities.
Yes,
Sorry, my apologies. Our priorities.
I will second that.
okay. Me, yes. Kat,
Yes.
Sam?
Yeah.
Casey?
Yes.
Luke?
Yes.
Okay. CT. Oh, CT, sorry.
Yes,
Someone's not physically in front of me.
It's harder.
Yeah. And now we need a second round of
Well,
motions.
Sam made it. part of.
No, he just made a motion to make it an action item.
Makes it, okay, all right. No, okay, then now,
Motion to approve the priorities.
Second that,
Great. Alex, yes. Kat,
yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Casey.
Yes. Yes.
CT,
Yes.
great.
Woo.
Woo.
And I think this is all revisitable and fungible, and let's figure out what works for us and what doesn't. And if we decide like this is twice as much as we should be doing or half as much as we should be doing, like we can always revisit, right? Like these are guidelines and priorities, not like, you know, like explicit directions. And then the last thing I would say, I would request then that those of us who have our names next to anything on here August with just a very brief, like in the next X months, here's the outcome
I
or
like
goal for this project. So again, as the example, super simple one for grant writing for playground at Chipeta, that might just be in the next 6 months. I want to have 3 to 5 viable grant options, and like knowing that we're eligible for them and like the deadlines and they're enough money and like that they meet our priority, like they meet our criteria, and have a meeting scheduled with Nikki to figure out which ones to apply to, right? It doesn't have to be more complicated than a sentence or two.
But like the intention, show up to move it forward.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so make these more, what was the term you used? Use some really good, like something about outcomes or.
Oh, like strategies or,
It was like 3 words. It's like vision.
oh,
chewable.
plans.
Oh, action, something, or anyway, but just like, yeah, something measurable. That's what it was. Measurable outcomes.
I do too, it's my favorite.
Do you
Yeah.
envision folks sharing that, like emailing it to me and then it's on the agenda, or like, how do you envision that?
I like that. I think it keeps us accountable.
Okay,
That's a
My
good idea.
opinion.
okay.
Yeah,
I can send out the reminder when I send out
Yeah.
agenda request.
I think that's a
Email
good
me
idea.
Yeah.
or-
Accountability works.
Yeah,
You know, it's good.
okay.
And again, don't like overthink it or
Yeah, just-
commit yourself, like,
Yeah.
right? We're all volunteers. We all have like, you know, jobs in school and, or we're toddlers. So like, don't overthink it, but like, be very specific, I guess, right? Like, so.
Do you want to send some version of this to Peter so it can be posted on the,
Yeah, I was
not with
thinking,
our names?
yeah, I'll take the names off, but just our updated goals.
Yeah.
And a little, I probably won't just say on hold until 2025 for PROSAB. I'll probably say like,
Just leave it on there.
Yeah,
just leave it on there.
yeah,
Yeah.
'cause we're not putting names, so it's
Yeah.
not really.
So yes, I will do that. And I will also just send it to you to pop in the notes so you don't have to rewrite.
Okay, cool. I mean, I've been doing it.
So your notes.
I know you're like a note magician, so. But
Okay, awesome. Thanks for the good discussion.
Yeah, that was good.
yeah, thanks
And important.
everybody.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to talk through it as a group. We can save this for next month, and it was more prompted by the alternate vacancy, but I want us to think about attendance policy, because I've gotten feedback, it's not clear what the expectation is, basically, for, I think BOT has some sort of attendance policy, SAP does, and our bylaws don't have anything. And this isn't so much to like punish people or like kick people off, but just so when people join, they have like a baseline of what expectations are, and like everyone is working from the same. knowledge.
I like the idea of it, and I think it allows people too, if they have conflicts, to just be like, hey, I know I'm not able to meet these, like, let me step down sooner, and it keeps the board
Right.
more functional.
Right, and that's with Kate, I was thinking of that.
Yeah.
Alternate joining. So, we can vote on it, we don't need to go overtime here to vote on it, but,
So we're gonna table it?
yeah, we'll table it, I'll just stick it on next month. In case there's more, I don't want to like cut off discussion if folks have other thoughts.
It
So,
might be good to have that discussion next month in conjunction with appointing an alternate.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I have 2 other business items. One, Community Cycles is going to be up here on Wednesday, the 24th. And they're looking for volunteers to help people with bike-related maintenance, how to change a flat tire, stuff like that. Livingston Village. They're gonna have a bunch of bikes for people in need and stuff like that.
Cool.
So yeah, if anybody wants to do that or knows anybody that wants to do that, it's super cool.
So they need, sorry, just to clarify, they need volunteers that are like experts at like all things bike to help
Not even
people, or-
experts, just, somebody who knows how to change a flat tire on a bike, like, or, oil a chain, or,
You know,
raise your seat post.
do you know Steve Seebeck?
Yes,
Because I thought would be interested in that.
And Brian.
so,
Very good.
that's
So
it.
this is something that could be plugged into the volunteer framework,
Right.
in a
Yeah.
future state kind of thing.
Totally, yeah. And then also we have a lot of neighborhood enthusiasm for getting started on the rink trail now that we're but you're still on vacation, so we're not gonna
Thank you.
jump the gun, but
Thank you.
just let you know that there's a lot of small children chomping at the bit.
Yeah, there's a lot of support for it. And
Is that not?
Okay.
for lack of a better word,
It's a
Meeting, so that's why.
We approved it with the nod of four.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, what's that gonna be?
Yeah.
yeah.
But, so it was sort of like, okay, we approved it and then, but we didn't formally unapprove it or do anything. So
Right.
as far as we are still concerned, we need to until we have a little bit more communication and resources.
Okay. And then it sounds like there is overwhelming community support as well as like a small minority. Or not.
That's three.
That there be public engagement and direct outreach to all of the members of the community before proceeding. And I think we saw the kind of backlash
Yeah.
because that didn't happen, unfortunately, which is
Well-
totally understandable, given like the sort of, things get public. And so I think taking that, wait, can I finish?
Yeah.
Can I finish?
Yeah.
Thank you. And so I think it's really important as members, on a public advisory committee, that we make sure to stick with what's, we're doing this for the community and with the community. And I think that taking a couple of week pause to make sure that we, engage the new administrator and work with Nikki is, you know, really important to do, and it's not necessarily going to change the good work that we can do, but we don't need to sort of, I want ignoring things that we and on. And I think
So before anybody reached out to anybody in the public, and that's what kicked off the public comment.
Yep.
I did research every single point that she brought up and
Mhm.
went in, took all of her concerns seriously and went through everything. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really important to listen to everybody, and even if it's just one person, right, like it doesn't really matter. We should at least address all the concerns.
yeah, speaking as
Just
someone
really
who's heard in the newspaper about things happening in my backyard before without having anyone talk to me about it can be pretty upsetting,
Yeah,
so.
and I think a lot of people, they read them out here, but they don't read the, BOT.
Background.
That's just.
I've been trying to get us a little bit more into the digital realm. I've been including embedded links.
That's
And,
awesome.
it is awesome, except that the people on the other end don't know what embedded links are. So like I do it as a writer, but the editors and the people posting it to the website, I get confused.
Yeah,
So I'm trying to,
and I think a lot of our community is not reading the web version, they're reading the paper.
Yeah.
yeah.
I read.
Right, there's so much stuff in the packets, like,
Yeah.
that's another conversation for another day, like, I would love to do like quickie pre and post meeting summaries that don't require you reading, like, anyway, that's a whole
That
other.
is a whole other thing. But yes, I mean, I just wanted to point out, like, it's important. And I also really, the best we can do to get people involved, people who have concerns about a project, to get them involved so that they, we had one of the other neighbors say that, yes, that I have concerns, that these are my specific concerns, like, don't cut down the aspen trees. Like, okay, that's great. Like, that's super helpful.
Yeah.
Involved, participation to get your concerns addressed, rather
Yeah.
than just saying, no.
Yeah, we don't need to listen to every, but we need to
Yeah.
do due diligence.
Yeah.
I think of it in like a federal agency sense, like
Yeah.
the proposed rule, notice and comment, and then you make a decision on a final rule after the notice and comment, not to be like an admin law nerd over here.
That is hugely nerdy.
Yeah. But we need a process
Yeah.
as a community for dealing with negative or constructive feedback
Yeah.
on proposals. And
Yeah, and it's important to hear everything, even if we ultimately decide to go in a different direction.
To be fair, that's definitely like a town-wide issue, like.
Oh, yeah.
Communicating with.
yes, and dealing with feedback. And thank you for doing all
What's
the
happening?
research
Yeah.
to
I think we're about to, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All right, adjourned.
All right. Thank you. I gotta go.
Yeah. Bye.
They can find, the not of four is the Supreme Court's rule of four.